Today, we're going to be breaking down how we would add a second roofing Google Business profile without getting the main location suspended. Here on the screen, we have Carolina Roof Consultants, and as you can see, they have about 16% of the top 3 coverage in this map scan for roof repair services near me. We're going to look at a competitor that actually owns the west side of Charlotte up here, that actually has upwards of about 40% of the market share. Up there in the top 3, but they only have about 43 reviews. Now, this is exactly when we start to think about expansion for this main profile. The first profile still has room to improve, and the market is already showing us a weak adjacent area that may justify a second location. We're going to show you what we would do to fix in the first profile to improve this first initial ranking, and find the part of Charlotte where the competition looks thin. Then we're going to go through the location foundation, NAP data, citations, and landing page, indexing, and the verification procedure of what we would do to get this Google profile stood up correctly, and how long we let the profile stabilize before we actually start pushing aggressive SEO in the profile harder. Whether you have one location or several crews already covering a metro, the same logic applies every single time. And by the end of this video, you should be able to look at your own market and decide whether a second profile makes sense and what needs to exist before you create it. Now, starting off here, the first question is whether Carolina Roof Consultants is actually ready to expand. The review activity is keeping pace. We're going to take a look at that with the nearby profiles, and they have the size and history to support another location. Now, we still want stronger review operations, and their current SEO could be producing better map coverage than it is right now. Even with that weakness, though, we would start planning the second location while strengthening the first at the same time. All right, quick pause here really quick. So we do this kind of local SEO work for home service companies every single month, from Google Business Profile audits and map grid analysis to on-page fixes, review systems, and expansion planning, obviously, except where the real money's at. If you want us to break down your market the same way we're going to do in this video here and show you exactly what we think the next opportunities for you could be for your expansion, book time with us below. Before we start hunting for the second location, we want to show you why we think the existing profile should already be doing better. The second profile, honestly, should just be expanding on top of the system that's just getting stronger, and the first location still has obvious problems worth fixing. Right now, as we can see on screen, their map pack rating is about a 16%, penetrating these top 3 spots in the maps, right? And the review velocity is okay. It's not too bad. If we pull up their reviews over here, again, we're going to sort by newest, and let's start taking a look. So they got one a day ago, and then it pretty quickly jumps to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then before you know it, we're a month out. I counted this earlier, and they've gotten about 10 reviews in the past 2 weeks, which isn't great. A second profile works best when the first location already has a repeatable system behind it. Reviews are coming in, the website targets the right service and city, and the citations match, and the team can support another location. We also want the first profile strong enough that shifting some review activity does not weaken the original market. Once proximity becomes the limiting factor, location 2 gives us a new center of gravity where the first profile starts fading. So looking at the local page that the GVP is actually tied to, the headline is already off to a bad start. Again, we're just going to pull up our dev tools here, and Carolina Roof Consultants, your trusted roofing partner in the Carolinas, okay? This is a problem because we're actually focused on the Charlotte area, not necessarily the Carolinas, right? And same problem here with the description down here, and then the headings, again, the H1, welcome to Carolina Roof Consultants, where excellence meets reliability in roofing, okay? Not the best. And as you can see here, sure enough, their H1 is prominently talking about the business and everything, but not necessarily the keywords. We've been over this in recent videos. You want the city and then you want the location. And in this case, it needs to be Charlotte. That needs to be the primary wording in your H1, meta title, and meta descriptions again, okay? It's very, very simple. It's a repeatable system, and a lot of companies that we audit just don't get this right. So as we begin to scroll down here, looking for more Charlotte type words, we're looking for roof repair, roofing services, roofing company in Charlotte, wherever these keywords that we can use that actually tie into the location of Charlotte itself in the greater area, okay? We're going to keep scrolling through here, explore our services. Again, I'd like to see Charlotte roofing services, residential roofing, commercial roofing. These are okay. If we pull up one of these service pages, you can see though, residential roofing in the Carolinas. Again, I checked like 4 times. These guys only have one location in the Charlotte area. That's what they need to be optimized for. And so as we scroll further down here, you can just kind of see the geographic reinforcement for these keywords is honestly just thin, right? This is one of the most common mistakes we see on home service sites. The company serves a real local market, while the page basically just talks like the business serving an entire macro area when they don't actually have locations based in every one of those cities. Overall, this site is ripe for extra extended SEO builds, like creating other service area pages, targeting more organic search results with some backlinks, and just trying to get a wider local SEO footprint. These guys have a ton to still work on. So the map side is actually heavily tied to the local relevance and proximity of that landing page, right? We've been talking about this. If the page attached to your Charlotte profile barely even talks about Charlotte, when that's literally where you're trying to rank over here, you're making the maps campaign harder than it needs to be. Now, if we take a look at their profile over here again, we saw about 10 reviews in the past 2 weeks, which isn't bad, but assuming these guys are the size they are with, I don't know, 854 reviews, these guys are probably getting more than enough calls a month to get more than, I don't know, 10 reviews in the past 2 weeks. So we do see a bottleneck there, and that can be solved by operations. And one more thing, as we look at the reviews here, they're not consistently replying to the reviews that are coming in. We want the Office team treating review generation and review responses as an operating system that happens consistently instead of whenever someone just happens to remember to go through the Google Business profile and reply to every one of these reviews. Some business owners ask us if you can actually keyword stuff these replies. We've A/B tested this religiously in the past across different multitudes of profiles and areas and categories. I just haven't found that to be the case. So before we even added another pin for these guys, I would just start by fixing all of their on-page SEO. We have a lot more room to grow in the map pack right where they're at right here. I mean, given they have 850 something reviews, they've just got so much more room to grow. So obviously fix the H1s, fix the titles, talk about more local relevance on the page, right? After that, we can move forward with the expansion and look at getting a second profile. And this is important because the current profile still has a lot of SEO headroom, and our read is that there's enough weakness here that we could even see the top 3 coverage growing as much as 2 to even 3 times the size that it is right now, with dedicated work actually building out the website functionally to look like a local SEO landing page for Charlotte. Now comes the fun part of actually trying to figure out where the second location should go, okay? We're going to be looking at a few different areas around this grid metro and looking at who has the weakest profile with a surprisingly high coverage, right? That's going to indicate that we have low-hanging fruit that we can go after for our second profile. So let's open it up and take a look here. So in my research for the video, we found that Gaston Roofing LLC Charlotte up here has a pretty interesting ranking going on. So this should start jumping out at the page at you. You can see they only have 43 reviews, and somehow they're absolutely dominating the west side of Charlotte over here. And even more interesting, later in this video, we are going to go into the on-page SEO of these guys, and it wasn't even that impressive. So right for the picking. I love this area. We looked at a few more down here in the south, but not as strong. So we're probably going to go with these guys. When we look for an expansion market, we're comparing 3 things. First, where are the competitors already winning while your current profile is just fading out? Second, is your competitor dominating the market with hundreds of fresh reviews, or are they holding the market with 40 or 50 and slow review velocity? Third, what does the website behind your competitor profile actually look like? If rankings are strong while reviews and on-page SEO are weak, this is the kind of market that makes us stop and investigate. So obviously, Western Charlotte up here jumps out at us almost immediately, and the first profile we're going to look into is the Gaston Roofing LLC. And as we see here, they've got about 43 reviews. So let's open up their Google Business profile, take a look under the hood. They do have 5 stars, but as soon as we start to look at the review velocity, we got one a day ago, 3 weeks ago, quickly jumps off to months ago. Look at this. Top 10 most recent reviews are probably 3 months in. It's just not a very strong review profile, right? And yes, they have maintained 5 stars. They're only at 43 reviews. That's not too hard to do. But these guys have achieved a pretty impressive ranking right off the bat by just doing 43 reviews, obviously 5 stars, but they've absolutely conquered the west side of Charlotte by just doing this. Now, obviously this gets our attention, but this is not the only factor you want to look at when actually looking at what new area to target. We've been over this recently on the channel. Review count still is one of the king factors, but it is not the only deciding factor. So in a minute here, we're going to open up the hood on Gaston Roofing LLC and actually see what their on-page SEO is. So let's start looking at a few more profiles south so we kind of have some contrast and comparison here. So one that I found down here was AAA Affordable Roofing. And check this out, with only 32 reviews, 4.6 rating, we're sitting at about a 13% hold on the main keyword term of roof repair services near me, with all these 1s, 2s, and 3s down here. So we're going to dive into these guys as well. So now we have two competitors in the same general area that are ranking better than we would expect based on just their review count alone. So this is exactly the kind of cluster that we want to break down before we sign a lease or build anything. We want to see if these guys actually have strong SEO to back this up or if it's kind of flimsy. And to start that off, we're going to go over AAA affordable roofing. So honestly, when I broke down this profile and was preparing for the video and everything, it looked pretty strong. So we can go through the heading tags over here. Reliable roofing and exterior solutions for your property. It's not great, right? No one's searching for solutions. They're searching for roof repair, roof services, roof inspection, right? Need these keywords actually tied to what you're trying to sell, right? And the biggest blunder right here, by far, was protect your property with reliable roofing, with a reliable roofing contractor in Charlotte, North Carolina. I would say that's okay wording, right? At least we've got Charlotte, we've got roofing, contractor is in there. It's not necessarily roofing services, but it's not bad. But unfortunately, it's not the H1, right? And you guys have seen this in breakdown videos recently. It's so simple to fix this stuff, guys. This should be the H1, and this should be the H2. And you can see their H1 they actually made is right here, further down on the page. Generally, some SEOs will disagree with me, but generally the H1 should be at the very top of the page. Some people think this needs to be in the top like 2 or 3 H tags. Usually we like to see it in the very top, so they'd also flip-flop that. So as we start taking a look here, I'm not seeing a lot of internal links. No internal links over here. Got some content, but it's not linking to much. We do have some links coming over here: residential roof replacement, commercial metal roofing. This is better. You don't want to link too many to too many of these internal pages here. I'm really looking for like more referenceable local citations and stuff on the page because that matters most. So let's look through here. A few more links: trusted roof and exterior construction. Again, missing the Charlotte area keyword. So overall, it's fairly impressive. These guys have been able to maintain this sort of ranking here. I mean, upwards of 13% penetration, 32 reviews, and their on page is just kind of lackluster, right? This is what we're kind of looking for. This makes you think, and we want to go back and look at this profile a little bit more carefully now as somewhere we actually could start investing into and trying to get a new profile stood up right in these guys' backyard. Obviously, they're kind of asleep at the wheel. Now, next up, we're going to take a look at Gaston Roofing LLC because this is the one that really jumps out, okay? Based on the grid, we can see, obviously, just from this scan alone, we did a different scan somewhere else, it's upwards of like 40% penetration with these 1s, 2s, and 3s in this area, which is pretty impressive, I gotta say. So first off, always starting with the review count, let's go take a look at 43. We touched on this earlier. I think we counted up like 10 in the past, 2 months. Look at this. It drops off so fast. And these are the profiles you want to look for, right? The ones that kind of make you scratch your head where, okay, well, if they did this with semi-frequent review velocity, what can we actually do with real SEO, running real reviews to the profile, right? If this guy holds the top spot, it's not going to be hard to knock him out. Moving on to their website, okay? As we pull it up here, looks like their H1 is probably going to be craftsmanship built to last, which is going to be a miss. That sounds familiar. Oh, you guys know I'm going to tear into this in just a second. So craftsman built to last, and then they got Gaston Roofing as the H2 down here. It's not great, right? Location and keyword, okay? They do have this YouTube video playing in the background as a B-roll. It may look really cool. We've tested this in A/B tests in the past. I like to try and steer away from these. A lot of the times they can slow the website down and they're not really going to help with the overall SEO effort. Although they are cool, some business owners really like to keep them in there. I generally advise against it, but that's a caveat. Got a few internal links here: roofing, siding, and gutter services. But as you guys saw a second ago, man, they fell down on this one. The title, Home Gaston Roofing. Description, actually missing for this page, which is insane to see that these guys actually rank this well over here and then actually have missing elements on the page. Again, we can scroll down. I think this is an H2 we looked at. They got some internal links. I like this, right? The design's actually kind of fresh. I don't like all these pop-ups that all these companies are putting on these days, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Really fell down here on the reviews, right? These guys need to actually have some sort of structured review system here with Google, like those 4 cards that we've been seeing, right, in all of our breakdown videos. That'd be much more effective. Again, we have some locations here. No location pages built out, so that's looking good for us, right? It's just rife with opportunity. Look at this. The contact form, okay, we have one down here, right? This is best practice. We've been talking about this. A little bit long. And then they have their location and their hours. And that's about it. Guys, if these guys can actually take this kind of ranking in Charlotte for roof repair services near me, I mean, obviously, this is where Carolina roof consultants need to be aiming. Now, I want to stop you guys here because this is the number one mistake we see business owners make before they actually try and spin up a new profile. And it is making sure the entire internet is telling the same story before the new profile ever becomes the new centerpiece of, ideally, this new ranking asset for your business. And building the sequence is boring on purpose. First, settle the real-world business information and build citations so the name, address, and phone number of the new location are consistent around the web. Second, you can actually build the location landing page and make the service plus city relationship obvious. Make sure it's in the H1. Third, you get those assets indexed so Google can actually discover them, which we'll talk more about later on. Then wait and let the footprint exist before the Google Business Profile actually comes online, so the new pin connects to an ecosystem that already makes sense to Google. And luckily, Carolina Roof Consultants actually gives us a pretty good starting point here with their existing NAP data. What I like to do is just scroll through the SERPs and kind of look at what profiles are out there, right? And we start to see Yelp, we start to see Facebook, Better Business Bureau, and what I'm looking for is to make sure their name is actually matching up. So we got Carolina Roof Consultants, not Roof Consultants - Charlotte or the business owner name in there or whatever kind of changes, right? So like Facebook, we got the Charlotte NC attached to the end of it. Not the end of the world. I would like to actually make sure this is consistent here. Let's keep taking a look. Better Business Bureau. This looks great. Zoom info is correct too. I think it went to about page 3 looking through things. YouTube looks good. Instagram looks good. Roofing Direct. This is a roofing citation directory. Great to have. We get the owner over here, president of the company, next door. This is all correct. Like overall, this NAP data is actually pretty clean, okay? And when you go to actually make a new location, consistency matters even more. Whatever legitimate business name the company actually uses for that new office needs to be the name that we propagate across new citations, just like these ones, on the website and off-page SEO, just like these citation profiles. Now, obviously, the address has to be different, right, for the new location. But in most of our tests, the phone number can stay the same. You can always iterate with that with call tracking numbers later on, but we haven't seen this make a huge difference. After you have an idea of what you're up against for the NAP data, now you just begin building citations around that new location. We want major directories, business profiles, and local references all referencing the same information instead of waiting until the verification tries to go through and then cleaning up the citation and NAP data footprint afterwards. After you have the citations and NAP data cleaned up, obviously is the landing page. And right now, the main profile is just tied to the site broadly with the home page, which is incorrect. When you actually go to send up these new locations, you need to have its own siloed content, its own landing page for those areas. For example, with this one, I would have the H1 say something like Roof Repair Services West Charlotte. And Google prefers this clean architecture on sites. Google does not want to see a whole bunch of different Google business profiles link back to just one homepage. This is where the service plus location structure that we keep talking about matters so much as you start to build out your profiles. Now, we're going to stop and talk about indexing just for a brief moment here, okay? Publishing a citation and honestly a landing page only gives Google something to discover, and we actually want to confirm the important assets are actually getting indexed. Now, the easiest way to do this is submit to Search Console and then submit the sitemap, okay? Obviously, build internal links, and you can use indexing tools like Omega Indexer when you need a little bit extra help making sure that Google's going to index those pages and citations. Now, the window we try and aim for is about 2 to 3 weeks as we spin up this information. After the citations go live and the landing page out there on Google is actually ready, we kind of want the footprint to get ready for the new Google Business Profile before we actually try and stick the location in there. For example, if we build citations on Monday, throw up a thin page on Tuesday, and then create the profile on Wednesday, it's going to start changing everything around too fast, and then you're going to be creating way too much trouble for Google. And Google's going to see that. It's going to look at someone trying to game the algorithm, and you're just not going to get your profile verified. You're going to have to get it suspended and put back up over and over again, and it just makes things a lot more messy. Do it right from the first get-go, and just build the citations, build a landing page, let them bake for a few weeks, get them indexed, and then you'll be good to go. Now, after all the foundational work like the citations, the landing page, and everything have been done for your new Google Business Profile location, and ideally those are indexed, now it's time to actually go after a new location. And usually this scares a lot of business owners. It makes you guys nervous because you don't want your first profile to get burned, right? This is a legitimate concern, and we've run into this in the past, and now there's a few tricks that we use to make sure that this doesn't happen to future profiles. So let's get into it for a second. So after you have a location picked, which we'll talk more about in the channel a little bit later on the theories of exactly where you can get these things, a few black hat methods as well to ensure you guys can actually get these verified in some pretty sneaky locations. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the procedure to actually verifying the profile at this location, okay? And video verification is basically a must these days. It's not common, but it's almost a certainty. So you do need actual access to that location. There are ways around this, which we'll talk about later on in Black Hat videos, but really what you need is you need permanent signage, you need controlled access, ideally locked access that you can show in that video, company equipment, vehicles, apparel, any kind of really just tools and, I don't know, equipment with the business laying around the room. Really, all we're trying to show Google is you guys actually operate out of this office. And as silly as it sounds, you can finesse these locations pretty hard. They can be a closet, a turnaround office, a shared working space. Don't use anything corporate or nationwide. Those addresses got blacklisted by Google a long time ago. But all you're trying to do is just make it look like your company actually has a legit service there. If it looks like you actually can service customers in this location, this little room that you've rented out, you're good to go. Not to mention, it's also good to have the business paperwork, such as like utility bills, state filings, DBAs, licenses, contractor documentation, really anything that looks official with your business name on it at this new location. In some cases, maybe some of those documents require an edit or two to make sure they look legit. Again, not that I would condone that kind of behavior, but sometimes you need a little extra oomph to make sure this new profile goes live correctly. After you have everything together, go ahead and shoot that verification video and submit it off to Google. Next up, we're going to go over some pitfalls of what can happen sometimes during the process, like a suspension, and what you need to do. Now, obviously, we are prepared for the verification to go through, but you need to be mentally prepared for the profile to suspend, because we all know that there's a very high chance and likelihood this actually happens to a profile, okay? So the analogy that I kind of give clients all the time is that it's kind of like rocking a vending machine back and forth. Have you ever tried to tip one of those over, right? It takes a few rocks back and forth until the thing actually tips over in the end, right? And that's kind of like getting a profile live. Every single one of these is just messy and sticky, whether you do it the white hat way or the black hat, okay? Sometimes the profile is going to suspend automatically. Sometimes it's going to go through and then suspend 2 weeks later. Really, I tell all of our clients it's kind of just par for the course these days. Sometimes Google just doesn't like the NAP data behind it. Sometimes the citations aren't indexed in at the right time. Sometimes they just don't like the verification video. It really just depends. Now, to begin dealing with a profile suspension, what we want is for the appeal to be ultra clean. Anything that you submit as documentation of the appeal needs to have the name, address, phone number, website, location, everything all aligned to that new location. This is what some business owners kind of mess up in the suspension process that we've talked to. They try and submit a utility bill of their main LLC at their original location, and it just doesn't cut it. Like we talked about yesterday when you interface with Google support, sometimes it can be a lottery system, but this is not the case with suspensions, okay? In general, you have about 1 or 2 shots before the profile is permanently suspended, and then you have to go find some SEO dork like me who has a backdoor to Google to actually get it unsuspended again, which we do for our clients every now and then when this happens. So you need to get your documentation correct the first time and make sure everything is in line because you only got about 1 or 2 shots, okay? They are going to ask for proof. Just pull up the records, state filings, licenses, things of that nature to show the business is actually legit at this new location. And sometimes you may need to edit those documents to make sure they do have all those little details in place. And if that's what you need to do to get your new location live, so be it. So after the profile is actually live, now we move into a stabilization phase, okay? The first few weeks, you do not want to be touching it, okay? So the profile's still cooling off. A lot of those citations, the NAP data, the landing page are still getting indexed. And this usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks of just letting the profile just sit and bake. So many problems come from a business owner starting to touch the profile too early, whether they're putting on reviews, asking family and friends for reviews, putting on photos, updating the description all the time. All you need to do is just let it bake. Once the profile has some history and everything is holding together, we are much more comfortable increasing the normal SEO activity around it. The biggest mistake that we see with new profiles is getting a new profile live and then immediately treating it like it has 10 years of history on it. Dumping on a pile of reviews from, again, family or friends, or trying to manipulate the description and the services too fast is just going to burst the bubble, and then this profile is going to get suspended, and then you're back to square one. And as for cadence, earlier I had mentioned that generally for the Google business profiles that are new, you want to get about 1 5-star review a week. After about 2 or 3 weeks in, you can pump that up to about 2. And then from there, after about 15 to 20 reviews in the profile, it's ready to actually be baked. You can run SEO to it, and you can put on much more aggressive review velocity to it without having to worry about it getting suspended. If we were to boil down the entire strategy, the second business profile comes near the end of the sequence. A lot of the work actually starts in the beginning, doing all the prep with the location, fixing the on-page SEO of the original GBP, and making sure NAP data is actually propagated and indexed correctly. After all the basics are done, then you go after the weak one in the market, right? Well, look for the sickly, small, little tiny profile that does not have any kind of surprising SEO factors to it, weak review velocity, and then basically no on-page SEO, right? That is who we actually want to go after. It shows that the market is going to reward a strong reviewed profile over there with honest, true SEO being ran to it that you can just basically bowl over the competition. So once you have the market, build that footprint in the GBP like we were talking about, get the most important assets indexed, which we're going to talk more about in future videos here, and then give it a little bit of time to bake. After that, you'll have a true new revenue generating lead generating asset on Google Maps. Now, this is the exact expansion theory and procedure that we would run for a company like Carolina Roof Consultants. First, I want to fix a little bit more of their on-page, and then after that, just go after the low-hanging fruit with those competitors. This is the exact procedure that we have used to add hundreds of qualified calls to other clients of ours in the roofing sector in the South with other profiles, and it works every single time. If you guys want an audit and a breakdown just like this one, I'd be happy to do it on a call. You guys can book a link with me at the first link in the description down below and be happy to chat.